As promised, joining me now is Pennsylvania's Democratic Governor Josh Shapiro. Governor Shapiro, it's great to see you. And it was a hell of a night for Democrats last night. So let me just start. Go ahead. It was.
No, it was a great night, and it's great to be with you and excited to talk to you tonight.
Yeah, I'm excited to have you here. So let me start by asking you about that, because we knew that it was going to be a good night by the polls, or that's what we all kind of anticipated. But there were victories really across the country, in blue cities, in purple states, in red communities, in ballot initiatives, all over the place, places that were unexpected. And the volume and the margins of victory really were astonishing to me. So let me just start by asking you to get your high-level reaction to what happened last night, what you really think it means about the electorate right now.
Look, I think the American people sent two very clear messages. First, they voted for candidates that were there to solve their problems and had a plan to get stuff done for them and had a plan to protect their fundamental freedoms. And second, they sent a clear message to Donald Trump that they don't want the chaos, and they're sick and tired of Donald Trump raising their prices and reducing their fundamental freedoms. And so I think what you saw was very clear in state after state, community after community, voting affirmatively for these candidates that were going to make people's lives better and sending a clear message to Donald Trump that he's making lives worse for people, and we don't want that.
Donald, I'm sure you saw this. I mean, Donald Trump seemed to spend the day today after the humiliating defeat ranting on social media about, I guess, how well he did in 2024. A year ago, we all know he likes to ignore reality when it doesn't suit him. Seems to be happening here. But what do you make of how he's coping with this resounding defeat so far?
I'm glad he brought up his track record from a year ago. So I'm here in Pennsylvania, of course, the kind of swingiest swing state in the country. Let's take a look at three of our bellwether counties that Donald Trump won a year ago: Bucks County, and in Erie County, and in Luzerne County. In all three of those counties that Donald Trump won a year ago, Democrats had resounding victories for offices like county executive and sheriff and DA, flipping a county council in a county that Donald Trump won by nearly 20 points. And so what you're seeing is, in just a year, folks have seen that Donald Trump has raised prices and reduced freedoms, and at the same time, people's lives are getting worse. Look, I think voters are smart. They're discerning, and what they realize is they don't like what Donald Trump is doing every day. This chaos he injects into our lives, into our country, it's making us worse off. And voters finally had a chance, after about a year of that, to go to the polls and make their voice heard. And in counties that Donald Trump won here in Pennsylvania, they rejected his hand-picked candidates. They sent him a clear message, and they voted for Democrats who are poised to get stuff done in their communities.
And a resounding victory for those three state Supreme Court justices. I mean, it's two-thirds of the vote, which is pretty amazing, despite the fact that the Elon Musk of Pennsylvania, as I'll call him, tried to buy those races. Let me ask you, exactly. I mean, it was a two-thirds vote in Pennsylvania, significant.
And listen, Donald Trump told Pennsylvanians to vote no on these justices. By the way, I told them to vote yes and campaigned hard for them. And the reason I did that is because our courts matter. The rule of law matters. If we want to protect our democracy, we need judges who are going to act with integrity and respect the rule of law, something Donald Trump doesn't understand. And so it was very clear Donald Trump was trying to throw these justices out. I did everything in my power to protect them, and they won a resounding victory because the voters here in the birthplace of democracy stood up for freedom and stood up for the rule of law.
Let me ask you about how we look ahead here, because, I mean, you were the attorney general, of course, in Pennsylvania when Donald Trump tried to steal a presidential election. He seems even more unleashed now than he was back then, or that's my assessment. How worried are you about what he's going to try to do in 2026, and how are you preparing for that?
Look, I'm worried because, to use your word, he seems more unleashed than he was, 4, 5, 6 years ago. And I think what's also concerning is all the people around him, are just sycophants. They'll do whatever it is that he says and won't stand up to him. I'm incredibly worried. And in addition to that, I think we've seen this is a president who who doesn't respect the rule of law and doesn't respect the people of this country enough to let them go to the polls and make up their own minds without him trying to interfere in that process. Now, I will remind you, because you and I talked about it on your show. We talked about it many times before. The last time Donald Trump tried to steal an election here in Pennsylvania, I went to court against him 43 times. I was 43-0. He didn't win a single case. And we had a free and fair, safe and secure election, just as we did yesterday. So I know Donald Trump will try and do everything he can to rig the system, to try and undermine people's confidence in our voting processes, to try and undermine our democracy. But we're going to continue to stand up to him. We're going to continue to go to court when he tries to undermine people's rights or take away their right to vote. And I believe that if past his prologue, we will again have a free and fair, safe and secure election and stand up to Donald Trump, stand up for the rule of law and win again.
And to your point, I mean, people turned out in huge droves despite his efforts to intimidate them across the country. Let me ask you about this question of candidates and kind of how they ran. I mean, there were very different candidates across the board that won last night across the country. And certainly the ones who've received sort of the most attention are the new governor-elect Abigail Spanberger, the new governor-elect Mikey Sherrill, and, of course, the new mayor-elect in New York City, Zohran Mamdani. I wanted to play, this has all kind of raised this debate about what the results tell us about what the future of the party should look like and where Democrats go from here. I just want to play something that Congresswoman Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez said about this when she was asked last night.
This is about, do you understand the assignment of fighting fascism right now? And the assignment is to come together across difference no matter what.
What do you make of that assessment?
Well, look, when I looked at the election results last night, and as you said, you know, different candidates, different states, different cities, I did see a similar through line throughout. Each of these candidates spoke directly to their respective electorate about how they were going to make their lives better, right? Reduce costs, make sure they're addressing the energy challenges, make sure they're addressing the needs of their particular state, their particular infrastructure needs in the case of New Jersey. And I was out campaigning with Mikey Sherrill and Abigail Spanberger. I heard them relentlessly speaking about how they were going to over and over again make people's lives better there. At the same time, all three of them spoke about how they would stand up for the rule of law and stand up against Donald Trump. And so while they're obviously different candidates, I saw a similar through line in each of those races. And it was about putting people first and standing up to Donald Trump and standing up for our freedom and our democracy. And voters went to the polls and they rewarded each of them with their votes in overwhelming numbers. And so I think as we go forward, you know, to me, Jen, this is less about, you know, are we sort of going this way or this way in terms of our party and our ideology. Instead, I think it's all of us together focusing on how to make people's lives better. That's what our party is for, and we're going to continue to do that work. I'll do it here in Pennsylvania, and I know the others will do it in their respective communities.
I mean, I think it's sort of a silly debate is my honest view, because the answer is who's the future. It's like both and neither. There's lots of people who are the future of the party. That's the whole point. Let me just ask you, I mean, you were pretty direct about your concerns about Zohran Mamdani. You were very open about them over the summer. You said he needed to speak with more moral clarity about anti-Semitism. I know you also have talked about a long phone call you had with him. My point is you haven't held back. You've been very, very clear where you have concerns. But what do you think Democrats can take away from his victory?
Well, first off, I'll answer, but let me just say, I mean, I've been very outspoken about the need for all leaders to speak and act with moral clarity, to call out hatred and bigotry in all forms wherever they see it, particularly people who want to be executives and lead their states or lead their communities. And to Mamdani's credit, after I said that about him in response to a journalist question, he picked up the phone and called me. And we had a very long and honest conversation. I told him how some of his words landed on me, how I thought it might land on others. And I thought it was a very productive and honest conversation. I mean, look, we didn't agree on every issue. That's probably not a shock to you or your viewers. But in terms of the second part of your question, the heart of your question, I think what we can learn from his race, and I give him credit for this, is he met people where they were. He listened to what mattered most to them, and he pledged to make change. You know, my first race for office was when I ran for state representative. And, man, nobody gave me a shot, Jen, to win that race. I was an underdog in a district that was overwhelmingly Republican. And I think I read that Mamdani started at 1% in his race. I probably started right around the same place. You know what I did? I went out and I knocked on 18,000 doors, and I listened to my community. And from listening, I was able to then go do for them. And I think what you saw with Mamdani was a guy who went out and listened, and now he's got the hard task of being the mayor of New York. He's got to go and do that hard work and deliver. So that's what I took away from his victory. He listened, he heard where the voters were, and now he's got the responsibility to do the hard work.
The hard work is ahead. The hard work is governing. As hard as campaigns can be, the hard work is definitely the governing part. Governor Josh Shapiro, thank you so much for being here and being so generous with your time.
Great to be with you, Jen. Thank you.